Have you ever seen someone you love break down and realize you never truly knew them? It's a moment that stays with you, like a scar, not on the skin, but deep in the soul. We spend so much time assuming we know the people closest to us, but sometimes it takes one night, one look, or one silent tear to show us just how blind we've been. This is not just a story about a father and son. It's a story about everything we fail to say until it's almost too late. And if you've ever loved someone, you need to hear this. The house has become far too quiet. Not the kind of peaceful quiet you enjoy after a long day, but the heavy kind, the one that sits on your chest like a winter coat you can't take off. I wake up at 5:30 in the morning every day, even now when there's no longer a reason to. No job, no commute, no noisy teenager stomping around the kitchen. But still, my body follows a rhythm it learned decades ago. I get up, make a cup of black coffee, no sugar, no cream, toast 2 slices of bread, and then I sit by the window watching the sun crawl slowly into the sky. The silence that fills the house now is not just the absence of sound, it's the absence of life. My son, Daniel, moved out 5 years ago, but it feels like yesterday and a lifetime ago all at once. His room remains untouched, not because I'm sentimental, but because I don't know what else to do with it. The air still carries a faint trace of his cologne, of basketball sweat, of late night dreams whispered into his pillow. His trophies still gather dust on the shelf. His math books are still piled on the desk, and the broken lamp that flickered every night still stands, refusing to die. Sometimes I sit on the edge of his bed and stare at the walls, not to cry, never to cry, but just to remember. I tell myself that I was a good father, that I gave him a home, food, safety, the chance to go to college. That's what matters, right? That's what being a man is about, doing the hard things, carrying the weight, never complaining. I never told Daniel, I love you very often. My own father never said it to me, and I turned out all right. At least, I thought I did. I used to believe that actions mattered more than words, that cooking dinner, paying bills, and being there was enough. But now, with this silence echoing through the halls, I've learned something else. Words are what stay behind. They echo louder than footsteps, louder than slammed doors. And the words I never said to my son, they are the loudest of all. It was a Thursday night, chicken night. I remember it clearly because I'd cooked his favorite fried chicken, mashed potatoes, sweet corn. I'd even made extra gravy. He came home late and barely said anything. Just tossed his backpack into the corner and sat down without looking at me. I passed him the plate, and he poked at the chicken like it was something unfamiliar. No appetite. No spark in his eyes. I watched him for a while, unsure how to ask what was wrong. When I finally broke the silence and asked, "You okay?" He just shrugged. That was his answer for everything back then. A shrug, like the world was too heavy to hold or maybe too light to care about. Like nothing I said could reach him. I tried again. "You want to talk about something?" He looked at me then, not angry, not sad, just tired. "Why do you always wait until I'm quiet to start caring?" His words hit harder than any punch I'd ever taken, but I didn't show it. I couldn't. Instead, I did what I always did when I felt something I didn't understand. I got angry. "Don't talk to me like that," I said. "I work all day, I come home, I cook, I clean, I pay the bills. I don't need this disrespect." He stood up slowly, calm but cold. "I'm tired of trying to talk to someone who only listens to his own voice." And just like that, he walked away. He went to his room and slammed the door. I heard music blasting a few seconds later, one of those angry, loud songs he used to like. I didn't go after him. I told myself he needed to cool off, that we'd talk in the morning. But in the morning, he was gone. There was a note on the kitchen counter, just a few lines, written in that messy handwriting of his. "I need space. I'll be okay. Don't wait up." I stared at that note for hours, read it again and again. I wanted to call him, but I didn't. I told myself, he's 19. He'll be fine. He just needs time. He's being dramatic. He'll come home in a day or two. But he didn't. Not that day. Not the next. Not for weeks. And me? I was too proud. Too stubborn. Too stuck in my ways. I didn't call. I didn't text. I told myself that if I reached out, he'd think he won. He needed to learn respect. He needed to grow up. I never realized until much later how much I was the one who needed to grow. After that night, something in the house changed. We didn't speak of what happened. It was as if silence had become our only common language, and I was afraid to break it. Every evening, I would hear the quiet creak of his door, the clink of a spoon in his cereal bowl, and the soft rustle of him walking to school. But he never looked me in the eyes anymore, and I didn't know how to fix what had cracked so deeply between us. I tried. I truly did. One morning, I made pancakes, the kind he liked when he was a boy. He came into the kitchen, paused when he saw the plate, and gave a polite nod. No smile. No thanks, Dad. He sat and ate like a stranger at a borrowed table. I wanted to say, I'm sorry, but the word stayed stuck somewhere behind my pride and guilt, in a place I hadn't cleaned out in years. At night, I would lie awake wondering if he still cried when I wasn't looking. I would listen for those tiny, hidden sobs like before. But the silence was louder now. It wasn't peaceful, it was cold. I started remembering things from years ago, like the time he asked me if he could learn guitar and I told him it was a waste of time, or the time I missed his school play because I had a meeting I didn't really need to attend. Back then, I thought I was teaching him strength, discipline, but now I saw a boy who grew up afraid to speak. Then one rainy afternoon, I found something that broke me. I had gone into his room to leave a new phone charger I'd bought. On his desk was a notebook, half open. I didn't mean to read it, I swear, but the words were right there, staring up at me. It was a letter. A letter addressed to me, but never sent. In shaky handwriting, it read, Dear Dad, I wish you could hear me. I wish you asked about my day. I wish I wasn't afraid of your voice. I wish I knew if you ever loved me the way I loved you. I closed the notebook with trembling hands and sat on his bed like a man who had just realized the home he built had no doors. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched the clock blink past midnight, past 2, past 4. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee gone cold and my regrets piling up like unpaid bills. I thought about my own father, how he never once said he was proud of me, and how I had sworn I would be different. But here I was repeating the same silence, the same distance. Only this time, the boy I was failing had my own eyes, my own last name, and I was losing him moment by quiet moment. The next morning, I waited. I waited for the sound of his door, his footsteps, his presence. When he walked into the kitchen, I didn't pretend to read the paper like usual. I looked up. I made sure my eyes met his. And before he could grab a bowl or say a word, I said, Hey, can we talk? He froze, just like that. Not angry, not annoyed, just still, like a deer caught between fear and hope. He slowly nodded, and we sat at the kitchen table, two men who had lived in the same house but never shared the same world. I didn't prepare a speech. I didn't even know what I would say. But somehow, the truth found its way out of me. I read your notebook, I admitted, and I'm sorry for everything, for the yelling, for the cold shoulder, for making you feel like your voice didn't matter. He didn't say anything. His hands were in his lap, fidgeting with the edge of his hoodie sleeve. I continued, my voice shaking. I wasn't taught how to talk about feelings. My dad, he wasn't around much, and when he was, he made sure I felt small. I thought being strict would protect you. I thought silence would make you strong. I paused. He was still quiet, but his eyes were glistening, just like that night. So I pushed on. I love you, son. I've always loved you. I just didn't know how to show it without breaking something inside me first. His lip trembled. He wiped his nose with his sleeve. And then, barely louder than a whisper, he said, I know. And just like that, my walls crumbled. It wasn't a dramatic hug. There were no violins playing, no sudden flash of healing. But in that one moment, something shifted. A door opened. A bridge was built. We sat there in the quiet again. But this time, it was a shared quiet. A quiet filled with understanding, not fear. He leaned back in his chair, exhaled deeply, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he smiled. Not a full one, just a small curl of the lips. But it was enough. That evening, I heard him humming while doing homework. I heard him laugh, just once, at some video on his phone. And when I passed by his room, I saw the door slightly open. Not much, but a crack, an invitation. And I knew then healing wouldn't come in a single night. It would be slow, uneven, sometimes painful, but it had begun. Weeks passed. Nothing big changed, but everything felt different. We still had quiet mornings and separate routines. But now there were little things. He'd leave his door open more often. I'd knock instead of barging in. He'd come down for dinner without needing to be called. And every now and then, he'd look me in the eye, just for a second. That was more than I'd gotten in years. One evening, I walked past his room and heard music. It wasn't loud, but it was full of feeling. A soft guitar, a voice singing about loss, about home, about fathers. I leaned against the wall outside his room and listened. The voice wasn't from the radio. It was him, my son. He was singing, softly, like the words weren't meant for the world, just for himself. And maybe a little for me. I didn't dare interrupt. I just stood there and let the moment exist. In that quiet hallway, I heard a part of him I'd never known. Later that night, I sat in my old armchair and thought about how many moments I had missed. I had spent years thinking being a father meant working hard, keeping order, saying no. I thought love was in the rules I gave, in the roof I kept over his head. But now I realized I never really saw him. Not the boy who liked to sing, not the kid who cried quietly into his pillow. I had been a provider, yes, but not a presence. And that broke me all over again. Then came that night. It was late, around 11 p.m. I had gone to bed early, but I couldn't sleep. Something felt strange in the air, a kind of tension like the calm before a storm. I got up and went to the kitchen to drink some water. As I walked down the hallway, I noticed his door wide open. The lights were off. The window was open, and the cold night air spilled in. He wasn't there. At first, I thought he might be in the bathroom, but I checked. Nothing. Then I looked outside. No bike. I called his phone. It rang once, then went to voicemail. My chest tightened. Not panic yet, but something close. I put on my coat and stepped outside, my mind spinning. Where would he go this late? Was he okay? Was something wrong? I walked down the street. His school was closed. The park was empty. I checked the corner store. The man behind the counter shook his head. Didn't see him tonight. Then, out of instinct, I turned toward the old playground. The one we used to visit when he was little. It was far, a good 20-minute walk. But something pulled me there. And that's where I saw him. He was sitting on the swings, alone, hoodie up, head down, just slowly swinging back and forth in the dark. I stood there for a moment, watching him, remembering a time when I used to push him on those swings, when his laughter filled the air, when he still held my hand. I walked up slowly. Mind if I sit? He didn't answer, but he didn't say no either. I sat on the swing next to him. The chain creaked softly under my weight. For a long time, we said nothing. Just two figures under a broken streetlight sharing silence. Then, he spoke. I didn't come here to run away, he said. I just needed to breathe. I nodded. I understand. He looked up at the sky. Do you ever feel like You want to cry, but you don't know why? His voice was small, raw. Yes, I said, more often than you'd think. He was quiet again. Then he said, sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in things I never said. Those words hit me like a brick because I knew exactly what that felt like. Me too, I whispered. He turned to me. Why didn't you ever tell me you felt this way? Because I thought I had to be strong, I said. I thought being a father meant hiding weakness. But I see now, real strength is being honest, even when it's hard. He nodded slowly. Then, with tears in his eyes, he said, sometimes I wish I could go back to when I was 7, when you still read to me at night. I felt my throat tighten. I wish I could go back too, and do it all better. And then, for the first time in years, he leaned into me. Just leaned, no words, no drama. His head rested on my shoulder like he used to do when he was small. I wrapped my arm around him and held him, gently, like he might disappear if I let go. We stayed there for a long time. The cold air didn't matter. The darkness didn't matter. All that mattered was this. My son was in my arms again, and he wasn't afraid to cry. And neither was I. Later, as we walked home together, I realized something important. It's not the big moments that change everything. It's the small ones, a look, a letter, a song, a night on a swing set. These are the pieces that build or break a bond, and I had been blind to them for too long. That night, I didn't just reconnect with my son. I met him, and I met the father I had always wanted to be. There's a moment in every person's life when the world goes quiet, not because the noise has disappeared, but because something inside you has changed. If you've just listened to this story, you probably know what I mean. It wasn't just a story about a father and his son. It was a story about all the things we carry inside us and all the words we never say until it's almost too late. We all walk through life with assumptions, thinking we know the people we love, believing time will always be there to fix the things we ignore. But time is not loyal. It moves forward with or without us. And one day, like the father in this story, we find ourselves standing in the doorway of a hospital room, realizing the person we thought we knew was a stranger carrying pain we never dared to see. How many of us are brave enough to ask the hard questions? How many of us wait until someone is on the edge of breaking before we pay attention? This story struck a deep chord with me, not just as a narrator, but as a human being. Because I've been there. Maybe you have too. Sitting across from someone you love and realizing you've never truly heard them, not really. You nodded. You smiled. You assumed, but you didn't listen. Our children, our parents, our partners, each of them has a world inside them. A world of memories, pain, joy, longing, regret. And often they keep it hidden, hoping someone will care enough to ask, to stay, to listen. But we get busy. We get tired. We get used to silence. And in that silence, love becomes a stranger. I want to tell you something today, not as a teacher, not as a narrator, but as someone who has made mistakes and still carries the weight of them. You don't need perfect words. You don't need to be wise or brave or strong. You just need to be there, present, open, willing to hear the hard truths and the quiet cries that don't come with tears. Because when someone cries like that, not with noise, but with silence that shatters the soul, you must not look away. You must not walk out of the room. You must hold their pain like it's sacred. This is what emotional language is truly about, not fancy vocabulary, not perfect grammar, but the ability to say, I'm here, I care. Tell me what hurts. That's the real purpose of learning English or any language at all. It's not just to pass a test or impress a stranger. It's to connect deeply, genuinely, human to human. And if you are here today, listening to this story, I believe you're not just learning English. You're learning the language of the heart. I want you to remember something else. The most powerful conversations often come from the simplest words. Are you okay? I didn't know you felt that way. I'm sorry. I love you. Tell me everything. These sentences don't require advanced grammar, but they do require courage. The courage to face uncomfortable truths. The courage to stay in the room when someone you love is falling apart. The courage to say, I was wrong. Or worse, I never really knew you, but I want to try. I know some of you are far from home. I know some of you haven't spoken to your parents in years. Some of you may be carrying regret. Maybe you haven't said, I love you in your own language, let alone in English. But it's not too late. Start small. Write a letter. Make a call. Say something. Because every day you stay silent is a day further from healing. And if you're a parent, please don't wait until your child is broken to ask what's going on. Don't wait for drama. Don't wait for a hospital bed. Ask now. Listen now. Open your heart, even if you're afraid of what you'll hear. This is what our stories are about. This is why Tailcrafter English exists. To give you the tools, not just to speak better English, but to live a more honest, heartfelt life. We believe language is a bridge between you and your dreams, between you and the people you love, between who you were and who you still have a chance to become. If today's story moved you, if it reminded you of someone, if it made you feel something you didn't know how to put into words, don't let that moment pass. Sit with it, write it down, speak it out loud, or send it to someone who needs it. Maybe they need to hear it more than you know. And if you're learning English because you want to connect more deeply with the world, then let's do it together. Here on this channel, we don't just study vocabulary. We study life. We listen. We feel. We grow. One story at a time. If this story touched you, please leave a comment below. Tell us what it made you think about. Tell us what it reminded you of. Did it bring someone to mind? A father, a son, someone you lost, someone you wish you'd understood sooner? Your words might help someone else feel less alone. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to Tailcrafter English. We share real stories, deep stories. Stories that don't just teach English, they teach courage, empathy, and love. Like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the bell icon so you don't miss tomorrow's story. We'll be here, waiting, listening, because sometimes the story that saves someone else is the one you didn't know you needed to hear.